The Duke of Westmont found her in the scullery at 3 in the morning, scrubbing pots by candlelight with hands that were raw and bleeding. He'd come down for water after another sleepless night, and there she was, a young woman in a threadbare dress, humming softly to herself as she worked through what looked like an impossible mountain of dishes. She hadn't heard him approach, too focused on her task, and for a moment he just stood there watching her work with an efficiency that spoke of long practice. "Does the household usually work their servants at this hour?" he asked quietly. She jumped, spinning around so fast she nearly dropped the pot she was holding. When she saw who'd spoken, her eyes went wide with something that looked like panic. "Your Grace," she stammered, dropping into an awkward curtsy while still holding the pot. "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to disturb you. I'll be quieter, I promise. You weren't disturbing me. I couldn't sleep." He stepped closer, and in the better light he could see that she was younger than he'd first thought. Maybe 22 or 23. Pretty, despite the exhaustion evident in every line of her face. "What's your name?" "Sophia, Your Grace, Sophia Hartwell. And you work here? At your uncle's estate?" Something flickered across her face at the word uncle's. "Yes, Your Grace, I live here." "At 3 in the morning?" "The dinner party ran late. There were many dishes." She said it matter-of-factly, as if working through the night was completely normal. "I should get back to them. If my uncles find them not done in the morning." She stopped abruptly as if catching herself saying too much. Nicholas Blackwood, Duke of Westmont, had been a guest at the Hartwell estate for 2 days, attending to business with the 2 brothers who owned it. He'd found them to be pompous, greedy men who spoke too loudly and drank too much. But he'd had no idea they were also the kind of men who worked their servants, their niece apparently, until 3 in the morning. "How long have you lived here?" he asked. "Since I was 12, Your Grace, after my parents died." She shifted uncomfortably, clearly wanting to return to her work, but too polite to say so. "I really should finish these. Let me help." "What?" "No, Your Grace, you can't." But he'd already picked up a cloth and started drying one of the pots she'd cleaned. "I'm perfectly capable of drying dishes, Miss Hartwell, and you look like you could use the assistance. But you're a duke who knows how to dry a pot. My mother insisted I learn basic tasks, said it built character." He smiled at her shocked expression. "Besides, at 3 in the morning, I'm just a man who can't sleep. The title can wait until morning." She stared at him for a long moment, then seemed to realize he wasn't going to leave. With a small sigh that might have been resignation or relief, she turned back to her washing. They worked in silence for a few minutes. Nicholas found himself watching her more than the dishes, the graceful efficiency of her movements, the way she bit her lower lip when concentrating, the careful way she handled everything, as if each pot and pan was precious. "You hum when you work," he observed. She flushed. "I'm sorry, it's a bad habit. I'll stop." "Don't, it's nice." "What is it?" "Just an old song my mother used to sing. I don't remember all the words anymore." Her voice went soft. "Sometimes I hum it to remember her." "How old were you when she died?" 12. She and my father were killed in a carriage accident. My uncles took me in because they were the only family I had left. That was kind of them." The laugh that escaped her was bitter and quickly suppressed. "Yes, very kind." Nicholas heard everything she didn't say in those 3 words. "They don't treat you well." It wasn't a question, but she answered anyway. "They gave me a home when I had nowhere else to go. I should be grateful." "That's not what I asked." She was quiet for a long time, scrubbing at a particularly stubborn pot. Finally, "My father left me a small inheritance, enough for a modest dowry. My uncles are my guardians until I'm 25. They've been managing it for me." "How old are you now?" 23. "So in 2 years, you'll have access to your inheritance?" "In theory, if there's anything left. They say the estate has expenses, that my room and board must be paid for, that the inheritance is being used for my benefit." She scrubbed harder at the pot. "I'm not stupid, Your Grace. I know they're stealing from me, but I have no proof, no way to fight them. And even if I did, where would I go? What would I do? A woman alone with no family, no connections, no references. They have you working as a servant. They call it earning my keep. Say it's inappropriate for me to live here as a guest when I'm not family, that I should contribute to the household. You are family. You're their niece. Not in any way that matters to them." She finally got the pot clean and moved on to the next one. "It's not so bad, really. I have a roof over my head, food to eat. It could be worse." Nicholas wanted to argue that it could also be much better, but he held his tongue. He'd known this woman for less than an hour. It wasn't his place to interfere in family matters, no matter how wrong they seemed. but he couldn't seem to leave either. Before we continue, dear listener, tell me, where are you listening to us right now? From the kitchen while preparing lunch? From the living room, taking a well-deserved break? Or perhaps from the bedroom, relaxing after a long day? Leave it in the comments. We love knowing you're here with us. And if you're enjoying this story, if the romance is touching your heart, please tap the like button right below. It helps us so much to continue bringing beautiful stories like this to you. And if you're not yet subscribed to the channel, subscribe now. We have a new exciting story every week waiting for you. Now, let's return to our story, because you will not believe what happens next. Nicholas stayed until the last dish was dried and put away. It was nearly 4 in the morning by then, and Sophia looked ready to collapse. "You should sleep," he said. "What time do you have to be up?" 6, to start breakfast for the household. That's 2 hours from now. I'm used to it." She tried to smile, but it came out more like a grimace. "Thank you for your help, Your Grace. You didn't have to do that. I wanted to." He hesitated, then added, "Will I see you tomorrow, during the day?" "Probably not. I take my meals in the kitchen and stay out of sight when there are guests. My uncles prefer it that way." She looked down at her ruined hands. "I'm not exactly presentable for company." Nicholas felt anger kindle in his chest. Not at her, but at the situation. At the uncles who treated their own niece like she was beneath them. At a world that allowed such things to happen. "Your hands," he said. "Do you have anything to put on them?" "I have some salve in my room, I'll be fine." She wouldn't be. He could see that clearly, but he also knew she wouldn't accept help if he offered it directly. She had too much pride for that, buried under all the exhaustion and resignation. "Good night, Miss Hartwell," he said finally. "Sleep well. What little sleep you can get. Good night, Your Grace, and thank you for the help and for the conversation. It's been a long time since anyone talked to me like I was a person." The words hit him harder than they should have. He went back to his guest room, but didn't sleep. Instead, he lay awake thinking about a young woman with bleeding hands and a voice that went soft when she remembered her mother, thinking about injustice and cruelty dressed up as family obligation, thinking about what he could do about it. By morning, he had the beginnings of a plan. He spent the day observing, watching how the uncles treated their niece when they thought no one important was paying attention, how she was summoned to serve meals, to clean up messes, to run endless errands, how they spoke to her, when they spoke to her at all, with casual cruelty that made Nicholas's jaw tight, and he watched how she bore it, with quiet dignity, with grace that shouldn't have been possible given her circumstances, with a strength that impressed him more than anything he'd seen in a long time. At dinner that evening, he put the first part of his plan into motion. "Hartwell," he said to the older of the two uncles, "I've been thinking about your proposal, the investment opportunity you mentioned." Both brothers perked up immediately. They'd been trying to convince him to invest in some scheme or another since he'd arrived. He'd been politely deflecting, but now he let them think he was interested. "I'd like to review the documents more carefully," he continued. "Perhaps I could extend my stay a few more days. Give the matter proper consideration." "Of course, Your Grace. Stay as long as you like." The younger uncle was practically vibrating with excitement. "We'll have the papers drawn up immediately." "Excellent, though I do have one small request." "Anything, Your Grace. Anything at all. I've been doing some writing, correspondence, memoirs, that sort of thing. I could use an assistant, someone to help organize papers, copy documents, that sort of task." "Do you have anyone on staff who could assist?" The brothers looked at each other, clearly trying to think of which servant they could spare. Nicholas waited, letting them come to the conclusion he wanted. "What about your niece?" he said casually. "Miss Hartwell? She seems capable." "Sophia?" The older uncle looked scandalized. "Your Grace, that is, she's not trained for that sort of work. Can she read and write?" "Well, yes. Her father insisted on educating her, but then she can learn what she needs to know. I'm not asking for a professional secretary, just someone to help with basic tasks. Unless she's too valuable in her current role." He let a hint of challenge creep into his voice. The uncles couldn't refuse without admitting they were using their niece as unpaid labor. Nicholas watched them squirm, hiding his satisfaction. "Of course not, Your Grace," the younger uncle finally said. "If you want Sophia to assist you, we'd be happy to arrange it." "Excellent. Have her report to the library tomorrow morning at 9, and make sure she's properly rested." "I need someone alert, not exhausted." He saw the flash of anger in both uncles' faces, but they covered it quickly. "Of course, Your Grace. We'll see to it." Nicholas excused himself shortly after dinner. He made his way to the servants' quarters, a part of the house he shouldn't know how to find, but he'd made it his business to learn the layout. He found Sophia in a tiny room barely big enough for a cot and a single shelf. She was sitting on the cot, her hands wrapped in bandages, looking more tired than anyone should look. "Your Grace." She scrambled to her feet. "You shouldn't be here. If my uncles find out, your uncles have given you a new assignment. Starting tomorrow, you'll be working as my assistant." 9 in the morning, in the library. She stared at him. "What?" "I told them I needed help with papers and correspondence. They've agreed to let you assist me. But I don't know how to. I'll teach you what you need to know. The point is to get you away from the scullery and into a position where I can keep an eye on your welfare." He paused. "And to give you some respite. You're to be properly rested, I made that clear. Which means you need to sleep now and not work through the night. The dishes can wait until morning. Or better yet, your uncles can hire actual kitchen staff to handle them." He softened his tone. "Please, Sophia, let me help you." "Why?" The question came out as barely a whisper. "Why would you do this for me? You barely know me." "Because no one should be treated the way they're treating you. Because you deserve better. Because—" He stopped, not sure how to explain the protective fury that had been building in him since he'd found her in the scullery. "Because it's the right thing to do." She looked at him for a long moment, tears shimmering in her eyes. Then she nodded. "Thank you, Your Grace. I don't know what else to say except thank you. Say you'll sleep. That's thanks enough." And you, dear listener? What would you do in Sophia's place? Have you lived through something similar? Do you know someone who went through a situation like this? Tell your story in the comments. We read each one with affection and love, knowing your experiences. And if this story is making you sigh, smile, or even shed a tear, share it with someone special. Think of that friend, sister, or daughter who would also love this journey. Send her the link. Love is meant to be shared, isn't it? But let's return, because what is about to happen will leave you speechless. The next morning, Sophia appeared in the library at precisely 9 o'clock, wearing the same threadbare dress, but with her hair neatly braided and her hands freshly bandaged. She looked nervous and uncertain, like she expected this all to be some kind of cruel joke. Nicholas gestured to the chair across from his desk. "Sit, please." She sat gingerly, as if the furniture might break beneath her. "What would you like me to do, Your Grace?" "First, I'd like you to stop looking so terrified. I'm not going to bite you." He smiled, trying to put her at ease. "Second, I'd like you to tell me about yourself, your education, your interests, what you did before you came to live here." "I don't understand. How does that help with your papers?" "It helps me understand what skills you have and what you might enjoy doing. I'm not actually going to work you to death, Sophia. This is as much about getting you out of that scullery as it is about getting assistance." She looked at him warily, as if waiting for the catch. When none came, she slowly began to talk. About her childhood with educated, loving parents. About the tutors they'd hired to teach her history and literature and mathematics. About how she'd loved to read and write before her life had fallen apart. "Do you still read?" he asked. "When I can. Sometimes I sneak books from the library late at night. I always put them back," she added quickly. "I never damage them. You don't have to sneak. As of now, you have my permission to read anything in this library you want. In fact, I insist on it." He pulled a book from the shelf behind him. "Have you read this?" Her eyes lit up. "Pride and Prejudice? I love that book. Elizabeth Bennet is wonderful. She reminds me of you, actually. Strong-willed and intelligent despite everyone trying to diminish her." Sophia flushed. "I'm not strong-willed. I'm just trying to survive. Survival takes strength, more strength than most people realize." He set the book in front of her. "Here, this is your first assignment. Read this and tell me your thoughts on it. We'll discuss it tomorrow. That's not work. That's pleasure. Who says the two have to be mutually exclusive?" Over the next few days, they fell into a routine. Mornings in the library, ostensibly working on Nicholas's papers, but actually talking. About books and ideas and the world beyond the estate. About her dreams and his responsibilities. About everything and nothing. He learned that she was brilliant, far more educated than most women of her class. That she had opinions on politics and philosophy that were well-reasoned and insightful. That she made him laugh with her dry observations about the absurdities of society. And he learned that she was slowly beginning to trust him. The wariness in her eyes faded. The nervous tension in her shoulders eased. She started to smile more, to joke with him, to be herself instead of the cowed servant her uncles had tried to make her. "You're different with me than you are with them," he observed one afternoon. "Your uncles? You're quiet and submissive around them. With me, you argue. You challenge my assumptions. You tell me when you think I'm wrong. She looked embarrassed. I probably shouldn't do that. You're a duke. I should be more respectful. You're plenty respectful. You just don't treat me like I'm made of glass. I appreciate that. He leaned back in his chair. Why are you different with them? Because arguing with them has consequences. Arguing with you is... She paused, searching for the right word. Safe. You don't punish me for having opinions. They punish you. Not physically. But there are other ways to make someone suffer. Extra work. Withheld meals. Little cruelties that don't leave visible marks. She said it so matter-of-factly that Nicholas felt his hands clench. It's easier to just stay quiet and do what they want. That's not going to change unless someone intervenes. Who would intervene? They're my legal guardians. I have no other family, no powerful friends. I'm no one, Your Grace. People like you don't intervene for people like me. I'm intervening right now. For how long? You said you were staying a few more days. Eventually you'll leave, go back to your life, and I'll still be here with them. She was right, and they both knew it. Nicholas had been thinking about this problem since that first night in the scullery. He had wealth and power, but there were limits to what he could do. He couldn't just demand they treat her better, couldn't force them to give her the inheritance that was rightfully hers. But there was one thing he could do, one option that had been growing in his mind for days. What if you didn't stay here? He asked carefully. Where would I go? With me. To London. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. As what? Your mistress? Your Grace, I may be desperate, but I'm not. As my wife. The words fell into silence. Sophia stared at him like he'd lost his mind. You can't be serious. I'm completely serious. Marry me. Come to London as my Duchess. You'd be free of them. You'd have legal protection, access to your inheritance, everything that should have been yours from the beginning. You don't even know me. We've known each other less than a week. I know enough. I know you're intelligent and strong and deserve so much better than this. I know I enjoy your company more than anyone's I've met in years. I know... He stopped, realizing how much he was revealing. I know this sounds mad. I know it's not a typical courtship, but I'm not offering you a typical marriage. I'm offering you freedom, partnership, a chance at a different life. Why? She asked the same question she'd asked that first night. Why would you do this for me? Because the alternative is leaving you here with them. And I can't do that. I can't go back to London knowing what I know and do nothing about it. That's not a reason to marry someone, isn't it? People marry for worse reasons all the time. Money, title, family connections. Why not marry for justice, for kindness, for the simple fact that we enjoy each other's company? Your family will never approve. Your friends will think you've gone mad. They probably will, I don't care. You should care. You're a duke. You have responsibilities, a reputation to maintain. My responsibility is to use my power to do what's right. My reputation can survive a slightly unconventional marriage. He reached across the desk, stopping just short of touching her hand. Sophia, I'm not asking you to love me. I'm not even asking you to stay married to me if you don't want to. We can arrange an annulment after you have access to your inheritance if that's what you prefer. But right now, today, I can give you a way out. All you have to do is say yes. She looked at him for a long moment. He could see her thinking, calculating, trying to find the trap. Because people like her uncles had taught her that offers that seemed too good to be true usually were. If I say yes, she said slowly, if we do this, what would you expect from me? Honesty, companionship, conversation. The same things I've been getting from you this past week. He smiled slightly. And maybe help with actual correspondence sometimes. You're much better at organizing than I am. That's all. That's all. Well, we'd have to maintain the appearance of a real marriage in public. But privately, we'd be exactly what we are now. Friends. Friends don't usually marry each other. Maybe they should more often. It seems like a better foundation than most. She was quiet for so long he thought she might refuse. Then, finally, yes, 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 I'll marry you. Before I lose my nerve and remember all the reasons this is insane. She smiled, and it was the first real smile he'd seen from her. Let's horrify your family and save me from mine. That's the best acceptance of a marriage proposal I've ever heard. Have you had many? Just the one, and it was worth waiting for. They were married 2 days later in the village church. Nicholas's solicitors stood as witness, having been summoned urgently from London with instructions to prepare the necessary documents. The uncles were furious but powerless to stop it. Sophia was of legal age and, As Nicholas's solicitor pointed out with barely concealed satisfaction, perfectly entitled to marry whomever she chose. The ceremony was brief. Sophia wore a dress Nicholas had his housekeeper purchase, simple but elegant, in a soft blue that made her eyes bright. When she said, "I do," her voice was steady despite the trembling of her hands. Nicholas hadn't expected to feel anything beyond satisfaction at helping her escape. But when he slipped the ring onto her finger and saw the hope in her eyes, something shifted in his chest. They left for London that afternoon. Nicholas made sure to speak with the uncles before departing, making it crystal clear that Sophia's inheritance would be transferred to her control immediately, and that if they tried to contest it, he would personally ensure their financial dealings came under the closest legal scrutiny. The threat was barely veiled, and they understood it perfectly. The journey to London was quiet. Sophia spent most of it looking out the carriage window, as if trying to convince herself this was real. "Nervous?" Nicholas asked. "Terrified. I've never been to London. I've never been anywhere except the village and my uncle's estate. You'll love it. The city, the theaters, the museums. There's so much to see and do. As a duchess, as a person who deserves to see and do things she enjoys. That's going to take some getting used to. The idea that I'm allowed to enjoy things. You have the rest of your life to practice." She turned from the window to look at him. "Why are you really doing this? And don't say it's about justice or doing the right thing. There has to be more to it than that." Nicholas considered lying, considered giving her the easy answer. But they were married now, and he'd promised her honesty. "My sister," he said. "I had a younger sister, Mary. She was brilliant and funny and full of life. When she was 19, my father arranged a marriage for her to a man twice her age. A political alliance. She begged him not to force it, but he wouldn't listen. Said it was her duty. What happened? She married him, and he systematically destroyed everything that made her who she was. Wouldn't let her read or write or have friends. Treated her like property. By the time I inherited the title and could do something about it, she was a shadow of herself. She died 3 years ago. Pneumonia officially. But I think she just gave up. I'm sorry. I'm not telling you this to make you sad. I'm telling you because when I saw you in that scullery, working yourself to death for people who treated you like you were nothing, I saw Mary, and I thought, this time I can do something. This time I can help." He met her eyes. "So yes, it's about justice, but it's also about not failing someone again." Sophia reached across the carriage and took his hand. "You didn't fail your sister. Your father did. The man she married did. You were trying to help. Too late, but not too late for me. You helped me in time. That matters." They held hands the rest of the way to London, not speaking, just connected, and Nicholas realized that what had started as rescue had become something else entirely, something that felt dangerously like the beginning of real feeling. London was overwhelming. The house alone, his London residence, was larger than her uncle's entire estate. The staff was enormous, well-trained, and actually paid for their work, and everyone treated her with respect that still felt foreign. "They're bowing to me," she whispered to Nicholas after the housekeeper had shown her to her chambers. "Calling me, Your Grace. I don't know how to be a duchess. You'll learn, and you're already doing better than you think. Mrs. Peterson likes you. How can you tell?" She smiled. "Mrs. Peterson never smiles at people she doesn't like." The first few weeks were a whirlwind of adjustments. Nicholas hired a lady's companion to help Sophia navigate society, arranged for a wardrobe that made her look like the duchess she was, introduced her to his friends and family, most of whom were too polite to say outright that they thought he'd lost his mind. His mother was the exception. "You married a complete stranger," she said over tea one afternoon. Nicholas had known this conversation was coming. A girl with no family, no connections, no training in how to be a duchess. "What were you thinking?" "I was thinking she needed help." "So you married her?" "Nicholas, there are other ways to help people. Charitable donations, employment. You didn't need to marry the girl. I wanted to." His mother's eyes sharpened. "Why?" "Because she's brilliant and brave and deserves better than the life she had. Because I enjoy her company. Because—" He stopped, realizing. "Because I'm falling in love with her. You barely know her. I know everything that matters. The rest we'll learn together." His mother sighed. "You're exactly like your father. He did the same thing, you know. Married me after knowing me for 2 weeks because he said he just knew. And you were married for 30 years and happy until he died. That doesn't mean it wasn't terrifying at first." She softened slightly. "Bring her to dinner tomorrow. Let me meet her properly. If you love her, I want to know her." Sophia was nervous about meeting Nicholas's mother again, but she needn't have been. The Dowager Duchess had decided to approve, and when she approved of someone, she made it clear. "You have good taste in books," she announced after an hour of conversation, "and you actually understand estate management. My son could do worse. Thank you, Your Grace, I think. It's a compliment. I don't give them often." The Dowager looked between them. "You're good for him. He laughs more. Seems lighter. Whatever this marriage started as, it's becoming something real." She was right. The marriage of convenience was transforming into something neither of them had expected. Companionship became friendship. Friendship became trust. Trust became something deeper. Nicholas found himself seeking out Sophia's company not out of obligation, but because he genuinely wanted to be near her. He loved hearing her laugh. Loved watching her discover things she'd never experienced before. Loved the way she lit up when she talked about books or ideas, or the charities she was starting to get involved with. And Sophia was blooming. The exhausted, wary girl from the scullery was gone, replaced by a confident woman who had opinions and wasn't afraid to express them, who could hold her own in any social situation, who was making friends and finding her place in society. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. There were moments when her past crept back in, when she'd flinch at raised voices, when she'd apologize for things that weren't her fault, when she'd work herself too hard because she felt she had to earn her place. One evening, Nicholas found her in the library at midnight, organizing correspondence she'd already organized twice. "Sophia," he said gently, "come to bed. You don't have to do this. I want to help. I want to be useful. You are useful. You're more than useful. But you don't have to prove your worth by working yourself to exhaustion. That's what your uncles taught you, and it's not true. Old habits," she said, but her hands were shaking. "Sometimes I forget that I'm allowed to rest, that I won't be punished for not working." He crossed the room and took the papers from her hands. "You're allowed to rest. You're allowed to do nothing if you want. You're allowed to just exist without having to earn it. I don't know how to do that. Then let me teach you, the same way you're teaching me how to see the world differently." He held out his hand. "Come on, let's go to the drawing room. You can read. I'll work on actual correspondence that actually needs doing. And we can just be together without it being about productivity or usefulness or any of that." She took his hand. "You're very patient with me. You're very brave. Changing the patterns of a lifetime isn't easy. But you're doing it. Every day you're doing it." They spent more and more evenings like that, just being together, reading or talking or sitting in comfortable silence. And slowly Sophia learned to relax, learned that she didn't have to earn love or acceptance, that she was enough exactly as she was. One evening, 3 months after their wedding, Nicholas found her in the library, reading by firelight. She looked up when he entered, smiling in a way that made his heart skip. "Good day?" she asked. "Better now. May I join you?" "Always." He sat beside her on the sofa, close enough to feel her warmth, but not quite touching. They'd been careful about that, maintaining the boundaries they'd agreed upon, keeping things friendly, but not romantic. But Nicholas was tired of pretending, tired of holding back, tired of acting like he didn't want more. "Sophia," he said, "I need to tell you something. That sounds ominous. It's not. At least I hope it's not." He took a breath. "I told you when we married that I didn't expect you to love me, that this was a practical arrangement, that you could leave if you wanted to. I remember. I need you to know that the offer still stands. If you want to end this marriage, I'll arrange it. You have your inheritance now, legal protection, options. You don't need me anymore." She was very still. "Do you want me to leave?" "God, no. That's the opposite of what I want. He reached for her hand. "I want this marriage to be real, not just on paper but in every way. I want to court you properly, romance you, convince you to stay not because you have to, but because you want to. I want to spend my life making you happy. I want everything with you. You love me," she said softly. "I'm desperately in love with you. Have been for weeks. Possibly from that first night in the scullery, if I'm honest. You should have said something. I didn't want to pressure you. You married me to escape your uncles, not because you wanted a husband. It wouldn't have been fair." She kissed him, soft and sweet, cutting off his explanation with the perfect answer. When they broke apart, she was smiling. "I love you too," she said. "I have for a while now. I just thought you only saw me as a friend, as someone you'd helped out of obligation. There was nothing obligatory about it. Not after the first day. Probably not even then." He cupped her face gently. "I love you, Sophia. Not the Duchess. Not the girl I rescued. You, the brilliant, stubborn, wonderful woman you are, I love you too. The man who treats me like a queen when he could treat me any way he wants. The man who sees me for who I am, not what I can do for him. They kissed again, and this time it was different, deeper, full of promise and possibility. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Nicholas rested his forehead against hers. So we're really doing this? Making this marriage real? We already made it real. We're just admitting it now. Their relationship deepened after that confession. What had been friendship and mutual respect became partnership and devotion. They learned each other's rhythms, preferences, fears, and hopes. Nicholas discovered that Sophia loved rainy days and chocolate and staying up late reading ghost stories. Sophia discovered that Nicholas had a surprisingly wicked sense of humor and could do perfect impressions of stuffy lords and actually enjoyed helping her with charity work. They complemented each other perfectly. Where he was impulsive, she was thoughtful. Where she was tentative, he was confident. Together, they were stronger than either could be alone. The Tun eventually accepted her, won over by her grace and intelligence. Sophia became known not as the Duchess who'd been rescued, but as the Duchess who revolutionized charitable work in London, who actually visited the workhouses and orphanages instead of just donating from afar, who treated servants and street vendors with the same courtesy she showed to dukes and earls. "You're changing the world," Nicholas told her one evening as they prepared for yet another charity gala she'd organized. "I'm just doing what anyone should do, helping where I can. Most people don't. Most people with your privilege would just enjoy it. You use it to make a difference. I know what it's like to be powerless, to have no one speak for you. I'm not going to forget that just because my circumstances changed." Years later, people would ask how they met. Nicholas would smile and say he found her washing dishes at 3 in the morning. Sophia would add that he'd helped her dry them. And then they'd share a look that spoke of everything that came after. The unconventional proposal, the hasty wedding, the slow fall into love that neither of them had expected, but both had embraced completely. They never returned to her uncle's estate. Sophia's inheritance was restored and invested wisely. She used it to fund schools for girls who had nowhere else to go, to provide opportunities for young women trapped in situations like hers had been. Nicholas supported every initiative, loved watching her change lives the way his intervention had changed hers, loved the woman she'd become when freed from the weight of her uncle's cruelty. They had children eventually, 3 of them. Each one taught that kindness mattered more than status, that helping others wasn't optional but essential, that love could grow from the most unlikely circumstances if you were brave enough to choose it. And every year on their anniversary, Nicholas would find some dishes to wash and hand Sophia a drying cloth. It became their tradition, their private joke, their way of remembering where they'd started. In a scullery at 3 in the morning, 2 people who'd found exactly what they needed in the last place either of them expected to look. Their eldest daughter once asked why they did this strange anniversary ritual. "Because," Sophia said, handing her daughter a dish towel, "that's where your father first showed me I was worth more than I'd been taught to believe. Where he saw me not as a servant, but as a person who deserved dignity and respect. And where your mother showed me," Nicholas added, "that the most valuable people are often the ones society overlooks, that titles and wealth mean nothing compared to character and strength." Their children understood, even if the ritual seemed odd. They'd grown up watching their parents treat everyone, from dukes to scullery maids, with equal respect. They'd learned that where you started mattered less than where you chose to go, that love could bloom in the most unexpected places. As the years passed, Sophia's schools thrived. Hundreds of girls received educations they never would have had otherwise. Many went on to become teachers themselves, spreading the cycle of opportunity. It became her greatest legacy, greater than any title or wealth. But her greatest joy was always Nicholas, the man who'd seen her bleeding hands and decided to help, who'd married her to set her free and then fallen in love with the woman she became, who'd kept every promise he'd made that day in the library and made new ones every day after. We're almost reaching the end of this exciting journey. But if you love the romance of Sophia and Nicholas, I have wonderful news. We have dozens of other stories waiting for you here on the channel. Breathtaking historical romances, heartwarming second chances, unlikely loves that seem impossible until they happen. Each story more exciting than the last. After finishing this one, scroll down and check out our playlists. I'm sure you'll find your next favorite story. And don't forget, activate the notification bell. That way you receive an alert whenever we publish a new story. Because let's be honest, you already know you'll want the next one, right? Now yes, let's get to the moment you were waiting for, the ending your heart asked for. On the morning of their 15th anniversary, Nicholas woke early to find Sophia already awake, sitting by the window watching the sunrise paint the London sky in shades of pink and gold. "You're up early," he said, joining her. "I was thinking about that first night, how terrified I was when you found me, how certain I was that my life would never change. And now I have everything I never dared to dream of. A partner who respects me, work that matters, children who are kind and thoughtful, a life that's mine." She leaned against him. "All because you decided to help wash some dishes. All because you were brave enough to accept help, brave enough to say yes to something terrifying, brave enough to build a new life. We built it together. We did. And I'd do it all again. Every moment." They sat together watching the sunrise, hands intertwined, hearts aligned. Two people who'd found each other in the most unlikely of circumstances and built something extraordinary from that unexpected beginning. Later that day, their children organized an anniversary celebration. Friends and family gathered. Sophia's former pupils, now successful women in their own right, came to honor the Duchess who'd changed their lives. Nicholas's colleagues from Parliament attended, having long since accepted that the Duke's unconventional marriage was also his greatest strength. But the moment Sophia treasured most came late in the evening, when Nicholas led her to the kitchens where the staff had set up a basin of dishes and 2 drying cloths. "Shall we?" he asked, that familiar smile playing at his lips. "Always," she said, taking her place at the basin as she had 15 years before. But this time her hands were healed. This time she wasn't exhausted and afraid. This time she was surrounded by love and respect, and all the things she'd been denied for so long. They washed and dried in comfortable silence, movements synchronized from years of practice. And when the last dish was clean, Nicholas pulled her close and kissed her the way he had on their wedding night, and every day since, with love, respect, and the fierce tenderness of someone who knew exactly how precious she was. "Happy anniversary, Your Grace," he murmured. "Happy anniversary, Your Grace," she replied. And they both laughed at the formal titles that masked the deep intimacy between them, because that was their story. A scullery maid and a duke who saw past surfaces to the truth beneath, who built a partnership on respect and kindness, who proved that love could grow from the most unlikely soil if tended with care and patience. And so ends the story of Sophia and Nicholas, a journey from servitude to sovereignty, from invisible to invaluable, about recognizing worth when others choose blindness, about the courage to extend a hand and the grace to accept it, about love that begins in service and grows into partnership. I hope this story touched your heart as much as it touched mine bringing it to you. If it moved you, if you sighed, if you smiled along with our characters, leave your like. It motivates us to continue. And tell us in the comments, what was your favorite moment? What touched you most? We want to know. Each comment is read with affection. Are you missing it already? Don't worry. We have a new story coming very soon. Subscribe and activate notifications so you don't miss it. And while you wait, explore our channel. We have so many other beautiful stories waiting for you. Thank you so much for your company, for choosing to spend this time with us, for opening your heart to one more love story. Until the next journey, dear listener, may your heart always be open to love, to hope, and to the good moments life reserves for us. A warm hug, and see you soon.